Hello and welcome to this ninth episode of the Flawed Therapist podcast. And I'm really delighted to welcome my interviewee today. This is Maggie McEachern. I can never pronounce your name. Maggie, you say your surname. I've tried and I failed.
It's McEachern. It's a tough one.
McEachern. Okay, thank you. I'll keep trying. I will learn it. Who is licensed clinical social worker from Denver, Colorado. And Maggie and we attend the same consultation group for sound therapy. That's how I've known her for the last few years. And I'm delighted to interview her today. So, Maggie, is there anything you want to say about the good things about being a therapist and things you like about it before we go into maybe more difficult stuff and more challenging questions?
There's so many cool things about it, but I would say my favorite things about it are just like the magic moments. So I do a lot of play-based work. I used to work only with kids, but I work with adults now too. And just so many moments that I can think of where I was like, wow, like this is the thing that we talk about with play or expressive arts therapies, right? It's happening right now. um, I'm in this like sacred moment with someone. And yeah, I think that those moments are the moments that make it really, I don't know, possible to deal with all of the the other moments that are
Yeah,
less magical.
yeah, those special moments that make it worthwhile, even though there are some others where we might doubt our choice of career at times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's hard about being you? And I'm not terribly familiar with the American system, but I know you've got some really tough requirements for becoming a licensed clinical social worker, and I think your criteria are a bit higher than what we have for practicing therapeutically here in the UK. So I guess it would have been quite a complex journey for you.
It was. So you for to be a licensed clinical social worker, at least in Colorado, it's like 2 years of grad school. You do like practicum placements throughout that time, so you're working for free usually for several years, and then yeah, you get like a provisional license and work under somebody's supervision for several more years, and then you take a licensing exam, and then you can practice independently. So it's a long journey. Um, and I think a thing that was like tough for me, and I think is tough for a lot of people in the States coming out of grad school, is like you're already burnt out by the time you make it into the field to actually be working. You've been working for free for like several years.
Wow.
Um,
So financially, it's really, really tough having to work for free for so long. Hmm.
and like it's expensive to do these grad programs here. I don't know what exactly that's like in the UK. I'm curious, but yeah, most people are taking out pretty like massive amounts of student debt to do those programs. So the
Yeah,
the financial aspects I would say are tough.
yeah,
At
yeah.
least
I think it's pretty expensive here, but maybe not quite as expensive as your route. Yeah, and in the US, you can't practice in other states. Is that right? You have to take special exams to be able to practice outside of your state.
Yeah, that is changing. They're kind of trying to make it be a more nationwide kind of thing. So you could practice with somebody if they go on vacation to another state or whatever the scenario might be. But yeah, right now there's pretty rigid like geographic boundaries around where you can practice.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds tough. So, apart from bureaucracy,
Yeah.
what what is hard about being you as a therapist?
I mean, I was trying to think about this just in preparing myself to be to be interviewed, and I think that there is this like dissonance that I experience where I tend to be a person who feels things really, really deeply. And so that is like you know, the state that I go into sessions with, the state that I try to be in relationship with clients with is just like be, alongside them experiencing things deeply. And that is really tiring. Like it is a really, I don't think I'm saying anything new to any therapists who are listening to this, right? But it is like a profoundly exhausting thing sometimes to be with people. And then we add this, like, yeah, this bureaucratic layer over top of that of all of these admin pieces that have to be, have to be done and are constantly hanging overhead. And
Yeah,
um,
admin often gets mentioned on
oh
on
gosh,
these chats. Yes, and again, I'm somehow imagining that in the States that admin is even more complex and demanding than what we have here. I think we have quite a lot of flexibility of what we record and how we record it here. Do you have quite strict rules on that?
I mean, there, especially if you work with insurance, which is, there's so much that could be said about being in this field at the current state of healthcare in the US, but most people have to use their health insurance to access therapy. That's the thing that makes it accessible. And there's a lot of requirements and demands that go along with that on the documentation side. And there's always that worry of like, oh my gosh, if I do this wrong, are they going to like deny my client care? Are they going to claw back money, right? Which is like a thing that happens here with certain insurance panels where you could be bopping along with a client for a couple of years and all of a sudden, receive a clawback of like thousands of dollars for services you've already rendered and been paid out, which is, kind of the one of the worst case scenarios. So
That sounds pretty tough. Wow, we're lucky here not to generally not to encounter that. So you mentioned being a sensitive person and how, on one hand, I believe it's a really great quality. Excuse me, for being a therapist and kind of going into the session and being open and open-hearted and empathetic and sensitive to what's going on for your client. On the other hand, do you find that clients' stories and their emotions stay with you? Does it give you sleepless nights? Does it bother you?
um I yes, I mean it definitely stays with me. It definitely stays with me. And I would say where it shows up sometimes for me more, and is another thing I was thinking about as I was just kind of like anticipating our conversation, is any place where I feel like I've made a mistake, right, with a client or, wish I had said something differently. Those things really stick with me. I can be really, hard on myself in those moments. And
Mm,
those are the things I would say that stick with me the most, or if I feel like I could have done something better.
yeah, and without kind of breaking client confidentiality, do you want to say a few words about, the sort of mistakes that you might have made? People might not believe that we make mistakes, and that as therapists we're supposed to do everything right. But it's a reality, isn't it? So, is there anything you're able to share?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's a number of things I think, thankfully, the mistakes I've made or the harm that I've caused in different moments, um, was not like like a profound harm, right? But I think about this a lot, I guess, of clients that I saw at different stages of my work, right? Because I've been in the field for almost 10 years now. And I think back on some clients where I wish I would have done something differently. And I think, oh man, if they got me as a therapist today versus, when I was like fresh out of grad school or even a few years ago, they would have gotten such a different version of me. Um, and maybe a version that I feel in the moment now, right, would be better equipped to have supported them or, or something like that. So I think about those people a lot where I wish that I had known more at the time that I was with them.
So some of those
And
mistakes simply due to kind of less experience than you have now, um, which sounds pretty human. You can't know what you don't know if you don't
it
know
is,
it.
yes. And I think though that's the hard thing, right? Is like, for sure I can look back and be like, oh, I was doing the best that I could. And there were definitely moments where I just didn't know enough to to do the kind of work that I wish I could have done with somebody. Um, because it's it's a constant, continuous learning process.
Mm.
I also think like another thing that is the kind of mistake that keeps me up at night is ever since I was a kid, my brain and mouth do not move at the same speed, right? My brain is like going a million miles an hour, and my mouth is like trying to keep up. And so there are many times where I like say something and then I'm kept awake at night being like, oh gosh, I wish I so deeply wish that I would have said that differently. But those are moments for repair with clients. I've had to
Mm.
repair a lot of
Yeah,
moments.
that benefit of hindsight. Mm. Yeah, well, some of the research I've read does say that less experienced therapists do not necessarily offer um, inferior service to those who are more experienced. And certainly looking back at my experiences of being a new therapist and cringing at some of the things I did or said, I reassure myself a little because apparently people who are very experienced, they may be a bit more complacent. They make mistakes on the basis that they maybe think they know more than they do, and maybe a little bit overconfident. So my reassurance to me, to you, to others is that actually having less experience doesn't necessarily mean we do a bad job. But maybe this is my this is my excuse looking back. Mm,
No, I think that's totally one of those truths, right? That is easier to believe about other people. Like I see the intern therapists that I work with, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're doing just this incredible work. And, I don't think at all that they have less to offer because they're new. It's one of those things, though, it's easier to apply it to other people than with kindness to a past self, maybe.
indeed. Hmm. So is there anything else that comes to mind that might bother you, right now, in your work or in the past? Any other regrets or burdens that you carry?
I mean, I would be curious what your experience is with this, but I think a thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently is just like, you know, what it is like to support clients through this particular cultural, like geopolitical moment, right?
Mm.
And it's just like there's so many things here, and I think in the UK as well, right, that are just so hard for people kind of systemically. It's hard sometimes when people are in session to feel like we can put a dent in these like systemic kind of factors that people are dealing with. But I think there are, in that sense, like there are real limitations to what therapy can do.
Yeah.
If you step outside and it's like, the world is, whether literally or figuratively, burning down around you.
Mm. Absolutely. I think world events can make us feel pretty helpless, and I think it's really important not to ignore them and not to disregard them, but what we do, if anything, when clients bring the issues related to what's going on in the States, stuff going on in the UK. Um, I don't have any good answers to that, but I think yeah, a bit of a sense of helplessness, apart from kind of ourselves being like I try to be somewhat politically active, which gives me some sense of, oh, maybe I'm doing something that's helpful. But I can see with the current situation in the States, for many therapists, it must be a really tough time. I imagine your clients are bringing a lot of difficult stories, traumatic experiences to do with the political situation. Is that right?
I would say yes, sometimes explicitly, and sometimes more. It's just like the energetic experience of being with somebody, right, who's living in the world right now. So I think a lot of times it's really interesting actually to see how it comes up with kid clients and like play-based work that isn't explicit, but the themes are so present. and there's all of these like scarcity kind of themes that are coming up.
Mm.
And right, the this kind of goes back to like what is great about the work, and it's this really naturally kind of titrated process of especially with kids where we're exploring those things, and then especially with some of my like neurodivergent clients, right, they're sharing like all these facts about their special interests. There's all of these shifts, right, that happen, um, where we dip back into something that feels like a little more grounded, or a little more special to them. And that is really cool just to kind of witness, right, the capacity to do that, to explore this really hard thing, and then to go back to something safe.
Yeah, yeah. So play can bring us to safety even in the worst of the situations. And kids are good at that. Mm.
Kids are good at that.
Mm.
And now, like this is one of my favorite things about the work, right? Is I know so many facts about like space and dinosaurs and all of these things, right, that kids share with me. And I don't know, what a beautiful offering, right, that we get to receive from
Mm.
people sometimes are those little like
Mm.
little facts that ground people.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's lovely to hear. And I only work with very few children at any one time. My room is not very child friendly, but I really my hat off to you for working with quite a few kids. I think um, can be hard, rewarding and hard in different ways from working with adults. What particular challenges would you say working with kids represents as opposed to working with adults? In what way can it be harder?
I'm just like I'm thinking about that because I think in a lot of ways like it's easier because it's just like the stuff is happening really like live in the moment. I mean that happens with adults too, but it's just different with kids. Um, I think working with parents sometimes can be can be a challenge. But that actually is a part of the work that I really enjoy. Um, I think yeah, I think working with parents sometimes, working with some of the systems kids engage with. So I coordinate a lot with schools and things like that, trying to get accommodations for kids in their school environments. And some of those things are honestly like it's more complex in that you are working with more people to support a client, but it's great, like because we get to have all this access to kids in different environments, which is really cool. I don't know if you actually knew this, but when I was like going to grad school, I was like adamant that I did not want to do any kind of play-based or creative therapies, or work with kids. And I remember saying that in an interview of like, no, I definitely am not interested in play therapy. And I ended up in an internship where I had to do it. And I think I was literally in the first session, I was like, oh my goodness, this is
So
this is incredible.
you were forced into it.
Yeah. And I can't even really like remember honestly why I didn't want to do it, but I was really adamant and then I did it. It did it for the first time. I was like, this is just magic. So yeah,
So you can't remember what was scary about it in the first place.
I can't. And I had worked with kids so much before becoming a therapist, so I guess I probably just wanted a change or something. Um, but yeah, and now I can't imagine doing at least doing any other kind of therapy without also doing the play-based stuff, the creative work.
So you wouldn't want to miss it. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah. So I'm wondering, we've talked a bit about work, and in terms of maybe your nearest and dearest, your family and friends, if they were to describe your flaws, what would they say?
That's a they would have more to say, I'm sure, than my clients would. Um, hmm. I would say that they probably I would say they would probably describe me as like overly enthusiastic about some of the things about which I am enthusiastic. I The way that my brain works tends to be to really dive into something with complete and utter focus for like a chunk of time to like nothing else exists for a while, and then I emerge from it and I'm done and move on to the next thing.
Okay,
A
so
very
a bit
intense
of hyper focus there.
Yes, yeah, I've got some of the neurodivergent qualities of my own, I think. So yeah, overly enthusiastic. Um, it can be, can be kind of anxious at times. Oh, and I'm terrible at all things executive function. They would probably definitely mention that. Um, Responding to text messages, like following up with people in a timely manner. Yeah.
Yeah, those admin bits, that's pretty hard. I feel for you. Yeah, especially as it looks like you've got more admin to do than us here.
Well, I
Mm.
just think there's like that's part of like modern living. There's so many admin pieces. And just so much information to take in to like sort through, I read in I can't remember exactly what the statistic was on it, but it's like the amount of information that we took in, 40 years ago versus today. It's like exponentially more information that we're taking in on a daily basis, and our brains are just overloaded.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I feel that pretty deeply a lot of the time.
So how do you manage? How do you kind of cope day to day? There is the work stresses, the admin stresses, there is your country's own political stresses, the world. There is a lot on your plate. So what helps and what hinders?
I mean, I think the things that help, I recently took up piano, and that has been I don't know, that just is like a really recharging thing to do something totally different, something creative. Um, yeah, so any creative things, I write sometimes, do other kind of creative projects intermittently. I also do a lot of my regulation, like sensory kind of strategy wise. The end of the day, I sometimes will just come and sit in like a complete sensory, like not deprivation because there's still ambient stuff, but turn off the lights, sit in the quiet, have nobody talk to me for a little while. Um, or alternatively, sometimes just kind of like a sensory blast to like reset my system, which is also really helpful to me. So I think creative stuff, sensory stuff tend to be the things that keep me kind of coping. And then I have a really great support system, both like personally and professionally. And I've always had really great professional, supervision, consultation with people. And that I think has been probably the biggest thing. So I feel it just becomes easier to manage any of it, right? When you share it with somebody else. So
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like you've got some really good backup, which we need. I think it can be really hard to acknowledge that uh, as therapists we can struggle with things, and asking for support is quite a difficult task for some of us, or certainly it has been for me. How do you find it, asking for support? Are you good at it? Have you had to learn?
I think I was extremely lucky in growing up in a family where that was a really easy thing to do to ask for support. And so I think that was a thing that, from like very early on, that it was a good and easy thing to ask for support most
Mm.
of the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
which is like is such a fortunate, experience. And I also think I've had just some really wonderful, mentors kind of throughout my life that have made it easier. I think where it gets like a little stickier for me is I think as a therapist going through your own like mental health stuff at the same time that you're doing therapeutic work with people is really um I don't know, it can bring up just like these feelings of not being a fraud. That's not really what it is, but it's like, oh, can I really be doing this if I, with clients if I'm also going through this right now? And so I think those are sometimes the places where I've been a little more hesitant to ask for help because I feel like or I felt in the past that it says something to be kind of going through your own mental health stuff as a therapist.
Mm. So feeling a bit of an imposter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And how does your family feel about you being a therapist? And, it's a hard job. Are they, uh, have they supported you? Are they not sure about you doing this?
I think I think it was initially a surprise to them. I think they've been really supportive, and as like a little kid, at least my parents described me as pretty like unempathetic early on. And so I think it was a surprise to them. That
I'm empathetic. I'm surprised to hear that. I from the little that I know of you, you are a very warm, empathetic person. Yeah. Mm.
And I think though that, that's like, I mean, maybe that's kind of the flaws, right, that other people would describe in me, right? Is I think I had a tendency throughout a lot of my life when I was faced with other people's intense emotion, right, to kind of to be pretty flooded by that in a way that I'm not as much anymore, or not often anymore. So I think I probably got overwhelmed by the intensity of what I was experiencing and kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, being a sensitive person is a bit of a double-edged sword. uh, You know, overwhelm is a thing, and so how do you manage if, in a particular session you may, well, I know occasionally I will get overwhelmed maybe by just the sheer volume of suffering and that difficult energy in the room with me. It can be pretty hard. Um, what strategies do you have, if any, kind of for managing it in the moment?
Um, I think, I mean, I'm sitting on the floor right now. You can see that I do a lot of floor sitting in in my sessions, and actually that is tremendously helpful to me to just be able to like, literally feel the ground. I think also I've become much more willing to just like name it, right? If I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, and I think it's really it's powerful modeling a lot of times for people, and it's like it just makes everything more congruent. So I think for most of my clients, say, oh, I actually am feeling just like I need to take a minute to organize my thoughts and really take a breath. Um, and it's really like cool to see that I use that language a lot. Like I just need to organize my thoughts and my emotions for a second, and then over time with like repetition, I hear clients like say that back to me. I just need a minute to organize my thoughts. I'm like, that's great, Um, so I think just naming it and then
Mm.
sitting on the ground a lot.
Yeah, well, it's good working with the kids. It's perfectly allowed to sit on the ground. Well, sometimes with adults as well, but it depends. Yes, but children are very amenable to us being on the floor. Yeah.
Doing those moments like they're I kind of like to bring in those sensory pieces as well with like, okay, so we're feeling a lot right now. Is there anything we need to take a second to do to just make the sensory environment feel better for us right now?
Mm.
Do we need to turn down the lights? Do we need to get a cozy blanket and just do like a little bit of a sensory sort of reset in those moments, which helps me a lot.
So it helps the kids and it helps you.
Yeah, and that one I do with adults too. And a lot of times they're like, yes, turn off the lights, please, like close the curtains. Um,
Mm.
I'm gonna lay down and take off my shoes, like whatever it is.
And I'm wondering, being a young therapist, if I may refer to your age, as we talked about your age the other day, and you're a young person. Do you ever get any grief from clients or parents of your clients? Do they ever say, "Oh, you look too young to have life experience in order uh, to work with my child or to help me"? Do people ever doubt you just because you're young?
I think it happened to me more earlier on than it does now. For sure, it did. I think the one I got more often was like, "Do you have kids of your own?" Which I don't. And okay, so like, what? Tell me why. Should I listen to like what you have to say about parenting or. But I think the cool thing about that is like even if we don't have kids, right, you were parented by somebody, most likely. In most situations, you were parented by somebody. So you've been on one half at least of that dyad. Um, I think it's really interesting though. An area that I've been moving into recently professionally is working with older adults. So people kind of retirement age and later, and that has been really interesting. And I thought that maybe there would be more of that age sort of dynamic, but I don't know. It's been a really cool sort of thing to do that work with that big age gap. It's been really, really rich work. And I've really loved, like, I just really loved it. I have, so much love for those clients that I'm working with.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. So you don't find that old people kind of a bit skeptical? What can you, youngster, help me with at my advanced age? No?
No, I like honestly have found it to be kind of the opposite, right? Of like some of the information, some of the stuff we think of as like basic, sometimes is newer or fresher um, to people who've had less exposure to it, right? So sometimes that can feel really powerful. And I
Mm,
think how the attachment dynamics show up when there is that big age gap, especially like when the therapist is younger, is really interesting. It brings up, I think, some interesting attachment kind of dynamics. It's cool to sort of to just like, I don't know, to be with.
mm, yeah, fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, I think I started my kind of therapy journey round about your age, and certainly I do remember some. Maybe it's the Brits, maybe it's it's the British who don't trust younger people. So, is there anything else that comes to mind that I haven't asked about, you know, your flaws as a human being, as a therapist, the imperfection of our efforts in this kind of job.
Um, I'm just organizing my thoughts. Give me 1 second.
That's all
Um,
right. Take your time. Yeah.
uh, honestly, like you said this to me a few, maybe like 6 months ago. And I think it really stuck with me because it was a thing that I had been feeling, but maybe not articulated. And I do think in the US as a therapist, right, there is a lot of pressure to to like not name your mistakes, right? The liability pieces feel so huge that I think there is this added sort of pressure of like of not making mistakes and I or not like not admitting to them, I guess, or naming them directly.
Yeah,
And
no, I get it, and thankfully in the UK there isn't that kind of a suing culture. I think it might be coming because we tend to follow in the US footsteps. So, but even here, where there is much less kind of a chance of litigation, people are quite shy of kind of discussing even just with a supervisor or with a consultant, um, people often don't bring some of the most difficult moments because of the embarrassment, the shame, the fear of judgment. So I think fear of judgment is kind of is alive here. But of course, the kind of litigious culture in the US, I think, makes it much more difficult. So I appreciate you chatting to me and admitting to being imperfect. Um,
and I think so I am sorry to hear that we are exporting our litigiousness to other parts of the world. Um, and I think yeah, it just makes it tough to like to do this work because we're always making mistakes, right? And that's like the constant cycle of rupture and repair is like what the relationships that we have are. And yeah, I think there's like that systemic kind of piece, but then just like with overall, I'm a person who is really can be very hard on myself after mistakes. And so I think that that is probably one of my like biggest flaws in a therapy sort of space. It's like having a tough time just like letting it go, like to acknowledge it and just kind of move forward from it.
okay. So the self-criticism can be pretty tough. Yeah. Mm.
Strong, yeah. Yeah. It's a very developed part of self. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that will be familiar to many people who listen to this. So thank you so much, Maggie. I really enjoyed chatting with you. And if you're watching or listening, please like this video, make a comment, and I hope there will be more episodes. There will be more episodes with some of my other wonderful colleagues. I think this is my first international interview with you, Maggie. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I will catch up with you later about our joint project in Ireland. So
It's
thank you so much.
so happy. Yeah.